Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. I'm your host, Charles, and we're going to be talking about a few different things today. This stream can go wild, it can go anywhere, but we're talking about the first American Pope. And not only that, but the fact that Trump made his big announcement. What this big announcement is, I will show you. I will tell you what that is and what these sort of implications are as far as this new Pope goes. How will this affect essentially everything that we're talking about here? And so, guys, if you guys are going to if you guys are liking this show, enjoying this show, go ahead and give it a like, a follow, subscribe, whatever it is, wherever you're listening to. And one sec. All right. So let's talk about the details here of what is going on here. Now, the Vatican, the smoke went up. The Vatican has announced that they have chosen a new pope. What does this mean? It means a lot of different things, but me personally, I don't think the elevation of a single person is not good. We've seen this time and time again throughout the Bible where there is this elevation of a singular person. They elevate them to a high status. And when they do that, they put themselves in a very grave danger to fall into sort of worship or idolatry. Now, there's this guy online. He's a very, I think you would call him, I forget his name. But anyway, he's talking about the fact that there's most of these people in the Vatican Square, they are there to celebrate the fact that God has put this Holy Father in this place. Yet we don't realize the things that some people don't realize the things that they're saying here. Remember, they're elevating somebody to a high status, and this is not good. Not good for anybody. When they elevate somebody at a high status like that, it can get to their head, very much so. But not only that, so this new Pope, Pope Leo the XIV, oh man, I'm so bad at Roman numerals. What is XIV? Tell me in the comments below. What is XIV? XIV is, let's see, 14. Pope Leo the 14th. Of course, that's going to be a top search on Google for people like me who aren't going to know exactly what that number is. But the new Pope, this Pope is actually the first American Pope that has ever been elected. His actual name is Pope Francis Prevost. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Actually elected as Pope Leo the 14th on May 8th. That's today. This is historic for the Catholic Church because of the fact that they don't get a pope so often. It's about 7 to 15 years that they get a pope. And Pope Francis was the last pope. Actually, don't even know his actual name, but typically within the traditions of the Pope, they choose a name. And in this case, Pope Robert Francis named himself Pope Leo the 14th. Now, why that is, not exactly sure. We're going to dive into some of this stuff and to why he possibly chose this name, Pope Leo. Now, in most cases, like Pope John Paul or Pope Paul, or Pope Francis, many of these different popes down the line, they had chosen a name, and then this way we get the Pope John the Second, Pope John the First, Pope John the Second, so on and so forth. And so it's just, again, an ongoing tradition, which goes back to several hundred years. Even something like the smoke goes back back to 60, I believe it is, something like that, where they implemented the white smoke. Or this was not even that old of a tradition. Now, here it says this is a historical moment. Catholic Church's 2,000-year history, according to what's this information here. It says his election following the death of Pope Francis, he actually died right after Easter. Interesting. Very interesting that he died after Easter. Why was that? I have no idea. Now, Robert Prevost, born 1955 in Chicago, Illinois. So he's the first American, I'll say president, pope. And he grew up in a Catholic family, served as an altar boy. His academic journey began with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. And he went to the Villanova University in 1977, an Augustinian institution, followed by a Master of Divinity from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. He later studied canon law at the Pontifical St. Thomas Aquinas University in Rome and was ordained a priest in 1982. His career is notable for its global scope. Now, what's interesting is the fact that so many people, or so many news outlets, liberal news outlets, they started reporting on this guy in favor of him before he was elected. Now, what does that mean? We have no idea yet. But that is kind of interesting when you put that into perspective as to who this pope is going to be. Maybe. We don't know. Nobody knows. Again, I'm not for any elevation of any type of person, any type of thing, because then it just falls into idolatry, it falls into worship, and it's just weird. People have this thing for this pope, and I look, I get it, it's tradition. It's, I don't know. You tell me in the comments. What do you guys think? Pagan rituals, historical moment, Trump's a goof. Here's a historical moment, Trump's a goof. Well, we all have our own opinion, right? Ronald McDonald Trump. Yes, we do. Yeah, so the fact that this tradition has been going on, and this apparently Peter is the first pope, as according to Catholic tradition. But the things about the Catholic tradition are the fact that Peter didn't even have a wife. Yet in the Gospels, we see that Peter did have a wife because Jesus healed his mother-in-law. Not much is mentioned about his wife. Maybe other extra biblical accounts are written about his wife, but we don't know much of anything about Peter's wife. Now, the Vatican, I actually didn't know this, but they claim, and this is their claim, is that St. Paul, or Paul the Apostles, his bones, I believe they're referring to St. Paul. I could just look it up if I needed to, but St. Paul the Apostle, his bones are buried under the Vatican. So he was crucified in Rome, or executed in Rome, and his bones are buried there. And so here we go. We have this whole new thing of what exactly is, this is just breaking news today as far as that goes. Interesting stuff here. Let's go ahead and play this B-roll here so you can see exactly everything that just went down, right? This is Pope Leo the 14th. Again, Pope Leo the 14th. His name is Pope Robert Francis Prevost. And here we go. So you can see here, crowd is going absolutely wild over this. I find this insane. Welcome from India. Thank you for watching. Pope Leo the 14th, the new Pope. The New Hope. Star Wars reference. Kind of looks like Palpatine. I mean, it's absolutely crazy these type of love this guy, any type of Pope has in that position. It's prominent. Oh boy, that's insane. Look at the kids are crying. I'm sure many people are crying. And there's a room inside this Vatican. It's called the Room of Tears. And apparently it's when they receive their cross that they will be carrying. I mean, symbolic of the fact that Christ carried the cross. I get it. Many of the popes cry over this moment. I mean, absolutely wild that this is quite historic. I mean, I don't subscribe to the beliefs of the Roman Catholic Church or any type of Catholic theology. We have very different understandings as far as Catholic and Protestant. The fact that they elevate Mary to a position where she should not be. We can discuss all of that, but interesting that we see all of this stuff. Cardinal Provost, formerly Cardinal Provost of the United States. And he speaks actually Spanish, Italian, and English. Maybe other languages. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, look at this. This is wild. New Pope and new Bible coming. The new Pope just dropped. Yeah, so this is following the fact that Pope Francis had recently passed. And this was recent. Apparently it takes a lot longer than what they did with this Pope. This is the 267th Pope. That's kind of crazy. So this goes back decades. I mean, that's wild. And he's fairly young. I mean, he was born in 1955. That is fairly young. That's around 60s. And if you think about it, he's got quite a bit of time ahead of him. Of course, unless God has other plans for his life. So he goes on to make his announcement here. We'll just keep the B-roll up so you guys can see exactly what's happening here. But yeah, this is kind of crazy. And so we'll get to your comments in a moment. You say, can you say a prayer for my friend? Well, let me know what your friend's name is. We can go ahead and pray for your friend after the stream. And let's dive into some more details about the Pope, because I think this is interesting as to what exactly is even happening with all of why this is so historic. Because we're finding out so much information as it comes out. And so, again, born in 1955, he had a ministry, I believe in Africa, if I'm not mistaken. His extensive time in Latin America. Fluency in Spanish, Italian, yeah. All right, there you go, you got a burger ad. His American origin was initially seen as a barrier due to the U.S.'s geopolitical influence, but his Latin American ties and agreement with Francis' union likely mitigated the concern among the 133 cardinals who elected him just after just 3 sessions of the 2025 conclave. So this sort of theological stance with Pope Leo, who'll go by his Pope name, his theological position. Some people say that he aligns with Pope Francis. This has been what's said in some of the news media and some of the background in history. Some people are analyzing this. Some people are just they're not talking about it, but the fact that he aligns himself with Pope Francis was, in my opinion, was not, this guy was not good. I'll say that, just to say the least. He was not good. The things that he stood for were not biblical. The things that he really was doing in his position, in his time, the advocating for LGBTQ, same-sex marriages. And so he's been relatively reserved and on contentious issues compared to his predecessor. Of course, he talks about in this address that he says that the last pope really set things in a good way. I don't know how else to put that. I can't remember the exact translation here. Here, we can go to some of the audio.
We are disciples of Christ. Christ goes before us.
L'umanità necessita di lui come il ponte per essere raggiunta da Dio e dal suo amore. Aiutateci anche voi.
You say, why is this crazy? It's crazy because
and help one another.
The elevation of a person, of a singular person, this shouldn't happen at all.
And for
we shouldn't elevate anybody but Christ.
For being
Jesus,
a people always in peace. Thank you to Pope Francis.
This is wild. Hey, buddy Ryan, they should make you do an IQ test before they allow you to comment. It's just facts. So we got here. His biblical theology is rooted in the authority of and inerrancy of Scripture as understood by conservative evangelical interpretations, emphasizing sola scriptura, traditional sexual ethics, and the exclusivity of salvation through Christ. Now, this is typically the stance within popes, but over time we see that they move away from these biblical ideas or biblical understandings, biblical rules, theology. They start to move away from it and they start to input their own 2 cents. So his name signals a commitment to social justice, echoing Pope Leo from 1878 to 1903, whose encyclical Rerum, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, laid the foundation for modern Catholic social teaching by addressing workers' rights and capitalism excesses. Vatican observers such as Natalia, chair of religious studies at Manhattan University notes, put a note that says, this choice suggests Provost will prioritize social justice. Interesting. Continuing Francis's focus on the poor, marginalized, and environmental stewardship. That is interesting because that is something that we don't want somebody in this type of power to do, to focus on things like social justice or prioritize social justice. That's not good, because then we see the same woke stuff that happens, and it just continues to circle round and round. There you go. You got a chocolate ad. And so, as we continue on here, some conservative critics argue that an overemphasis on social justice, as seen in Francis's papacy, maybe I'm saying that wrong, papacy, I'm not sure, to dilute Christ's focus on proclaiming the gospel or addressing sin. If Provost prioritizes social issues over doctrinal clarity, this could be seen as a departure from strictly evangelical biblical theology, which, of course, yes. So his stance on things like LGBTQ appears less progressive than Francis. who famously said, this is Pope Francis, if a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge? Now, this is a very interesting sort of topic to sort of look at when you see somebody who is homosexual and they seek after God. Ideally, they would want to not have any sort of sexual relations, because then that's going against the Bible. They could have the temptations, they could have the, I don't know, the want to do these things, yet they don't fall into that because they esteem God higher than their own lustly desires, their fleshly desires. But he says, who am I to judge? And he supported it case by case, blessing the same-sex unions case by case. It's so contradictory. You say, okay, if a person is gay and seeks God, but then he's case by case on blessing the same-sex union. So essentially, two of the same sex getting married, which is unbiblical. Yet he says that they're seeking God. None of this makes sense. It's just absolutely contradictory to what he's believing because of what the Bible says about same-sex anything. And so he says this is Pope Leo showing sympathy, or sort of sympathy towards the homosexual lifestyle and an alternative families of comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children, suggesting these are at odds with the gospel, of course. So he was a bishop in Peru. He opposed including gender ideology in school curricula, stating the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist. Okay, so he's got a good stance on that, at least what it seems here, according to his history. Now, I know we're analyzing him like we can go on and we can analyze him all day long. But the thing is we have to remember this is just a man. He is no Christ. Let's just say that. He is nobody who should be elevated to the point to where he is. I understand there's leaders, there's people that are put in power, and God will use all of them. So it's quite interesting. Let me get to some of these comments here because I see the comments going on. It says, in all religions, there are powerful leaders that should be a clear indication that no God exists. A real God would need no exactly. Well, it doesn't indicate that no God exists, but we have our one intermediary, which is Christ. But that wouldn't necessarily prove that no God, that you say that no God exists. I think it's just, I don't think that's exactly correct, but I get what you're saying. And so this is something that shouldn't be done. However, let's see some of these other comments. It says, Orthodox Church seems more closely aligned with early church teachings. Idol worship, same commercial. And you say Jesus was all about social justice after the Old Testament. That is not true. I mean, it depends on what kind of social justice you're advocating here for. I don't know, whatever it is that what your mindset is on that sort of social justice idea. People have different ideas about that. To each their own. Otherwise, it says, Bible says there is no male and female. It's not true. Jesus has no comment at this time. Yeah, man. Quite funny. Rome has been very dishonest about the origin of the faith. Yeah, a lot of things that they have said in the past, again, I don't agree with. It says the faith was never meant to become a state religion. Yeah, interesting, right? The lion wanders the earth seeking whom he may devour. Yeah. Goes to and fro. Prior to this, no pope had ever been from the United States. The papacy spanning, I'm going to just call it papacy, spanning nearly 2 millennia. has predominantly been led by Europeans. Now, it's actually interesting, the choosing of the Pope. The Chinese Communist Party actually has some type of ties with the Vatican, which is quite interesting if you actually think about that. Meaning that there could be some type of influence from the Chinese Communist Party as to who they put in place for the Pope. Now, we can look more into this, but let me read some more of your comments. It says, one should be a follower of Christ, not necessarily a Christian. Yeah, I think it's there should be examples of these types of people, but not elevated to this type of position. It just doesn't fit well. Like, yeah, I get it. People in power can be Christians and they can most certainly do the right things. And that should be the thing, is to do the right thing. But we don't want to elevate them. Again, we don't want to elevate them to where they shouldn't be. Therefore, we should just, if they're in a high position of power, most certainly we should just acknowledge the fact that they have a biblical stance, and also that they would rule their region with righteousness and with true biblical sort of point of view on politics or whatever it is. Look at that crowd. I mean, wild. I mean, many people from around the globe. You see so many flags there. So many flags of all of this happening. Yeah, this is breaking news. I know you guys probably have seen this stuff all day long. But you say here, Robert Francis Prevost, a Chicago-born cardinal, is the perfect of the dicastery for bishops and a dual citizen of the United States and Peru. I think it's sad. So many people following a man, just a man. Please, people, seek Jesus. He is our Savior. Amen and amen to that. F16C. Christianity comes with various denominations. Christianity does come with denominations, but the thing is that humanity has most certainly added so much theology and doctrine, just extra biblical things to the Bible. Things that just don't need to be done. Traditions like this, for example. I mean, I don't want to bag too much on any of it. I don't want to start, there's some serious, solid Catholics in the world that do follow Christ and try to follow Christ reverently, diligently. And I understand that, but just the point of views that we just disagree on is the worship of Mary, the worship of the saints. And a buddy of mine who was telling me about the fact that, in his family, the kind of understanding about saints and who they are and their sort of roles when you pray. And this is, in some Hispanic culture that I know personally because my family is Hispanic, and a lot of the Catholics in my family do and follow these same sort of procedures, but they basically have this idea that each saint has their own type of trait, like just simpler terms, superpower, where this saint will have the ability to heal, or this saint will have the ability to give financial blessing, and so on and so forth. Just bad theology, bad understanding. It's so crazy. See here, why is almost every live stream some primitive superstition? What do you mean by that? This is Nick Fuentes types are what Rome allow and mobsters, conquistadors, etc. Because it's not superstition. Somebody said Jesus Christ rose again. He rose once. It says, I've seen bigger crowds surrounding Shadow Speed or Michael Jackson. Maybe. There are people most certainly more famous than the Pope. I'll say that much. The Pope is well known. And they've got a lot of money. I'll say that much. A lot of money. So this is very political in some instances. This whole movement, this whole thing of the Pope can be very political because of the things that he stands for, the things that he does. This could be a move towards, I mean, insanity if this is done incorrectly. It says the new guy looks really old. It's no wonder they keep dying. Actually, no, he's quite young for the Pope that they chose. I mean, he's got at least 20 years ahead of him. At least 20. You say, sadly, a woke progressive Pope. Yeah, possibly. We have no idea what's going to happen just yet with how everything is playing out. Quite interesting that we see this going on. You say, so people will naturally believe what they want. You can't tell me which version is correct when it's been changed 1,000 times. Yeah, in the last stream, we talked about actually this idea that people think that the Bible was changed over and over and over, or that we have copies of copies of copies of copies. And a good stream, you should check it out. Let's see here. Nobody said they believed in any of it at all. Organized religion is humanity's biggest joke. Jesus was progressive for his time. Everyone goes to heaven. Not everyone goes to heaven. I'll say that much. Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes through me, nobody comes to the Father but through me. Narrow is the gate. Wide is the path that leads to destruction. Wild. These are things that we have to take into account. So his viewpoints, he prioritizes, again, social justice, migration, and with the centrist approach, balancing progressive pastoral care and conservative doctrine. Well, I guess time will tell. Time will find out. Some of this stuff will be revealed in its time. Again, he was born in Chicago. He was ordained in 1982, served as a missionary and bishop in Peru. He's a cardinal in 2023. And his theological stance aligns with traditional Catholic teachings, progressive on social issues, conservative on ordination and sexuality, emphasizing pastoral flexibility, openness to same-sex blessings, and synodality may conflict with strict evangelical views on sexual ethics and hierarchy, authority. Admires Francis. He admires Francis, supports his reforms on communion for remarried Catholics and migration, and seeks to continue his missionary vision. Interesting. Again, he chose the name Leo to signal strength, social justice, and continuity with Leo's the 13th legacy, reflecting a reform-minded, globally engaged papacy. Papacy, whatever. So this is quite interesting to see everything that the Pope, this new Pope, what exactly is going to happen in all of this. Now, I did want to talk about the fact that Trump had some big old announcement that everybody was waiting for. Everybody was waiting. Look at that. Look at the crowds. And that is absolutely crazy for people to gather for such an event like this. I get it. It seems like to some people, it's just sentimental. It's this whole thing. It's tradition. It's something that their families have done for years and years and years, where they, witness the next Pope, and they witness, it's like so special for them. And look, I just pray that this new Pope most certainly points to Christ and acts accordingly, with true doctrine, I mean, come on, it's quite insane when we look at all of this stuff. We just have to take it all into account and see where we go from here. See if things get worse or see if things get better. Because, there was talks that they wanted to put a more conservative pope in there, but apparently he leans a little bit more liberal. So kind of wild. But this is quite the news. He announces a new trade deal. Trump, that is, announces a new trade deal with UK. And we'll go to that footage now. But guys, let me know your final thoughts on the Pope, because there's just so much that is happening within this whole month. Just a bunch of news everywhere. Here we have President Trump making a major trade deal with UK. Okay, this is the next video we're going to take a look at here. And you tell me if this is a big deal or not. We'll just kind of listen to what exactly is going on here.
The UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. And our Secretary, as you know, of Agriculture is here. Brooke, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Being
it's a
here.
good day. Thank you, sir.
You'll let the farmers know. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that...
Yes, Bart, it was so interesting. I was kind of speculating all this stuff in my head. I'm like, what exactly is Trump going to announce? What could he possibly be so big that he said this is something that hasn't happened in a long time? This is his words here. And then this is the big announcement, this major trade deal. I mean, how big this is, I have absolutely no idea. But we do know that there's going to be some benefits from this trade deal. I believe the tariffs went down with UK to 1.3 or 1.9%, but the American tariffs for UK went up 10%, or is that 10%? So quite interesting with this new trade deal. He'll talk about a little bit in some of this stuff, but this trade deal will bring quite a bit to America, where we will be able to purchase some great food items from UK. And we know that from Europe and UK, a lot of these other nations, they create their food more healthier than America does. And America has fallen into this trap of keeping our kids sick, keeping our people sick. They'd rather just keep them in the hospital and not recover so that they can keep getting the medical bills, keep getting the payments. Just wild.
Fairly discriminated against American products, but this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries, because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they're opening up the country. Their country is a little closed, and we appreciate that. They'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways. The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one. We think just about everything's been approved. So good for both countries, and we'll also receive new market access for American chemicals, machinery, and many other industrial products that weren't allowed, and they'll end up getting products that they'll be able to price, and if they like them better and we make great products, they'll be buying those products, but they were not available in the UK.
Now, what's interesting, KJ, you say forcing every country to, with trade agreements to renegotiate past agreements that have been paying out heavily, not in favor to the USA for a long period of time, just my understanding of it. You know, the thing about tariffs, and a lot of people disagreeing with the fact that tariffs are just not going to pay off for the United States, but I think it's important to know that this administration is going for a delayed gratification effect, where these things that seem a bit, they will put a little bit of pressure on the American people. We're still in a looming recession. We're still in the fact that, right, a recession might come. We're still the fact that there might be some, there might be tax cuts. There may not be tax cuts. We're waiting for this big, beautiful bill to come into play and pass. All these types of things that we're looking at, yet right now we're sort of feeling that the future is uneasy. However, you're seeing things like gas prices go down, the price of oil is going down, the price of certain grocery items are going down, like eggs. So the economy is shaping up already a little bit. Now, this whole big announcement is adding another $5 billion. I think it was $5 billion to the U.S. economy, secured. Quite important there with this new trade deal that he's talking about. So all of this stuff, we might not see the instant gratification how we were used to. So the United States was a consumer, but we don't want to just be a consumer economy. What everyone wants to be a consumer economy, but we want to be also a manufacturing economy. And this is good because we don't want to just rely solely on, say, China, for example. And this is why he had placed such a high tariff on China, because not only are they not going to make a deal with America, at least as of right now, there's still no deals that we know of as far as China and the United States. But the reason why it's important that we get away from relying upon China or relying upon other nations to manufacture our products, and we want them to come over to America and start building here and start building their infrastructures, their business, their employee, hiring employees and all that stuff here in America, is to bolster the American economy. But this is only going to be a gratification that we'll receive later down the line, say a year, 2, 3 years down the line. So the investment long term for the American economy, the United States of America, is going to be beneficial for those who are investing in stocks, investing in companies. So you won't see the immediate uptick on your wallet per se. You'll see that in the long-term goal. So you want to bet long-term. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just saying you want to bet on the fact that America will be in a better position long-term.
Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket, and that's very important. And we feel very, very comfortable with that because it's been a great ally, truly one of our great allies. I mean, a lot of people say our greatest ally. I don't want to insult people by saying that, but I can say it's certainly one of our greatest, and right at the top. And they're the first one we're talking about. And by the way, we have many meetings planned today and tomorrow, and every country wants to be making deals. And we have a meeting, as you know, Scott will be going over to Switzerland on Saturday, and that'll be very, very interesting. We'll find out, but I think they want to make a deal very badly, too. Both countries have agreed that the economic security is national security, and will be working together as allies to ensure that we have a strong industrial base, appropriate export controls, and protections for key technologies and industries like steel. Steel is a big factor. Both countries will become stronger.
I'm curious. You say ASICS, he's done horrible so far. Why do you think that? Why do you think he's done horrible so far? What exactly is it that you don't like? Because the economy that we're seeing right now already looks promising. Right now, it's promising, a little bit promising. Some people feel on edge. They feel like they've lost money within their 401ks, which the economy did take a slight dip in the stocks. But then now we're seeing that the economy is already up, what, 500 points? And it's just going up and up and up.
Steel and things necessary for military.
You say Trump promised a lot on day one, and all he has done is change the name of the Gulf of America. Not even close. He's actually done many executive orders to fix the problems. Remember, he's undoing all the nonsense from the last administration. So even with the deportations, a lot of people are upset about the fact that he's not deporting as much as he said that he was going to plan on deporting. Now, the thing is that we're getting these radical judges who are blocking or trying or attempting to stop and delay all of these things, all of these deportations from happening. And so they're saying that they want to give each of these people a trial, a case. And in order to go through any of these amounts, it's what, I think 2 million or 20 million, I think it is. But in 4 years, they would only go through about 400 cases, if that. So the fact that they want to do that is kind of radical. It shows you exactly what these judges, they're just operating way out of their jurisdiction here. They have no ability to go and stop the second branch of the government. They're way out of their purview.
Military, we used to build ships and other things literally at a level that nobody's ever seen. And
Eric, you say thoughts on the new American Pope. Look, man, I'm not for the elevation of anybody. No president, no pope, no nobody. The only elevation of anybody we need to lift his name high, is Christ Jesus. He's the one that deserves all of the credit for everything, right? All the credit for all the good that we see in the world, even the sort of all the things that we read about in the Bible, the things that he did, the things that his ministry.
We've eased.
And yeah, I mean, look, everybody, they had this new American Pope. I don't know. Trump said that he's excited to visit him. He's excited to go and meet with this new American Pope. He was ecstatic the fact that he discovered that he was an American Pope. Will this mean anything for America? I have no idea. Only time will tell, but it is very surprising that he was chosen as the next Pope. There was a lot of debate as to who would be the next Pope, and he was kind of the least of the options there. But then just before he was elected, there was all these articles about him from liberal news outlets in favor of this guy, and suddenly he's chosen. Well, not suddenly. I'm sure they were discussing all of it, but that's kind of my sort of immediate take. You say that stocks took a slight dip. I don't know where you're getting your information, but the stocks have gone way, way down, not just slightly down. Where I live, 8 pieces maybe are still over 6. 8 prices. What do you mean by 8 prices? Are still over 6 for a dozen. Eggs. Oh, egg prices. Maybe that's what you're trying to say. Egg prices are still over 6 for a dozen. Look, eggs are still expensive, yes, but I think they're down like $2 or $1, right? So the fact that just when Trump got into office, everybody was complaining about the fact that these eggs were such a high price, right? I don't know. It was like a week in, maybe about a month, a week to a month. I'm not sure exactly the time frame, but it was really soon after. And they were complaining about the fact that egg prices were so high. Yet the Biden administration, what they started doing was they started killing and slaughtering all the chickens. This could have been done and dealt with in a way better fashion, instead of just killing all the chickens and destroying all the eggs. Wild. So yeah, even $1 or $2, when we start to see a dip in these prices, things are headed in a better direction, of course. Now, what Biden was doing is he was artificially bringing down the price. So he wasn't The price wasn't going down because the economy was better during Biden. It was artificially brought down. But when we look at the, I forget what index it's called, but they were measuring it based on items that people don't purchase instead of items like egg, chicken, milk, and so on and so forth. So they're measuring it based on like certain types of metals, very strange things. So they kind of cheated the price. Gosh, I forget what index that's called, but anyway, say it's called the system of checks and balances. Our system is not radical. Yeah, judges are radical when they're acting way out of their jurisdiction here by invoking injunctions against Trump, suing the Trump administration, because every time they try to deport somebody, there's always a new case. And so the United States has to get creative because they're trying to do everything that they have to follow the law. And by I mean creative is not breaking the law. I'm saying they're getting creative in the fact that they need to quickly and fast sort of way to expedite the process. And so they're using the Alien Enemies Act in order to conduct their deportations under a state of emergency, national declared emergency. Let's see here. 3,000 is a slight dip. Stock market is not the economy. It's not. I don't know, man. That's what you might think. Stock market tells us where our sort of economy is sort of headed. Kind of get an idea of the economy. When we see things like grocery prices, we see things like gas prices. Those things are the sort of factors as far as what our economy looks like. Where yeah, again, all the stuff that we saw under Biden were artificial prices. They were brought down artificially. Eggs was just like the TP in COVID. Oh man, don't remind me about that. Toilet paper during COVID time was just, people were selling it for hundreds of dollars on Amazon. Okay, you say prices are down. He said, buy the dip. We are America, so we are the blessed country as long as we fight for righteousness. Yeah, some people bought on the dip and they made a lot of money off of that. I didn't do so. Consumer Price Index. There you go. Thank you, JR. Consumer Price Index. Thank you. They were utilizing not incorrect, but they were utilizing items that were not purchased by everyday people. Again, we can look into that and see exactly what those things were. Yeah, exactly right. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for finding that. Not sure what this. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Up, and I would say that the UK certainly eased up, but now we're going to be uneasing both, and we work together. Once again, I want to thank Prime Minister Starmer. He's been terrific for his partnership in this matter. The special relationship and external bond. It's really an external and an internal bond between our two countries will soon be stronger than ever before. And we really do. We have a great relationship. I want to just say that the representatives of UK have been so professional. And it's been an honor doing business with all of them, and in particular the Prime Minister. And I'd like to introduce him now to say a few words. Mr. Prime Minister, please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. President, Donald. And this is a really fantastic, historic day in which we can announce this deal between our two great countries. And I think it's a real tribute to the history that we have of working so closely together. Can I pay tribute, Donald, to your negotiating team as well, particularly yes. Howard and Jameson, who've done an incredible job, a very professional job, and my team as well. Two negotiating teams have worked at pace now for a number of weeks to bring in this deal today. Really important deal. This is going to boost trade between and across our countries. It's going to not only protect jobs but create jobs, opening market access. And as you say, Donald, the timing couldn't be more apt because not only was it 80 years ago today that victory came for Europe after and at the end of the Second World War, but of course on that day the UK and the US stood together as the closest of allies. And Donald, I think even down to the hour, because you may or may not know that it was about this time of day, exactly 80 years ago, that Winston Churchill announced victory in Europe, and that led to great celebrations across Europe, across America, but particularly in the United Kingdom. Literally people going out into the street, putting bunting up, going up to the palace, and so to be able to announce this great deal on the same day, 80 years forward, almost at the same hour, and as we were 80 years ago, with the UK and the US standing side by side, I think is incredibly important and makes this truly historic. That close relationship has endured over those 80 years. As you know, Donald, when it comes to defence and security and intelligence sharing, of course, there are no two countries that are closer to new and important territory by adding trade and the economy to the closeness of our relationship. It is built, as you say, on those notions of fairness and reciprocal arrangements. We've always had a fair and balanced arrangement between our countries. This builds on that, hugely important for sectors like car manufacturing and for steel and aluminium and so many others. And yes, we can finish hammering out some of the details, but there's a fantastic platform here, including, of course, on the tech side, where I think I'm right in saying we're the only two Western countries with trillion-dollar sectors when it comes to tech. And in the end, it comes down to, as you say, Donald, economic security is national security. On national security, we've been absolutely the closest of allies for so many years, keeping the peace through that close alliance, that friendship. And now we add to that this deal on trade.
As we cover this coverage on Trump making a major trade deal with UK, Anthony Rivas, you say, what's up with India and Pakistan? Is it going to affect us? World War III looks like it, especially with some of my friends and brothers are talking, saying maybe. Now, I don't think that this is going to be or lead to World War III. We do know that these are two nuclear powers at odds right here. They are, things aren't looking good in that sense, but there has been many conflicts over the years with regards to India and Pakistan. Could this result in nuclear warfare? It is possible. It is not something that is impossible. I believe India and Pakistan, they have roughly around the same amount of nuclear warheads, about 170 each. And so, with regards to this sort of Middle Eastern conflict here, boy, I mean, could it affect anybody else? Of course, it's going to affect people. It might affect some of us here in America, possibly, but I don't think in a terrible way. In a sense, unless there is some type of American, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, I'll have to think of that word. But basically, yeah, it's not going to be or lead to World War III. I don't. This is unlikely. What the thing that could lead to World War III would be the fact of Ukraine and Putin, or Ukraine and Russia. With the fact that there would, if there's no deals on the table with anything, yet there is a deal going on with this, with regards to the ceasefire that is possibly going to happen. Vladimir Putin has not responded yet to any of the things that has happened as far as the mineral deal or anything like that. That's all we know, is that there is a mineral deal on the that is going to be made with Ukraine. However, this does not involve Vladimir Putin yet. There's so much happening again with Trump and UK and China, so many things that are just going down. So you say, yeah, this type of thing with India and Pakistan will not lead to a world war. I don't think any of these are NATO nations. Let's take a look. So India is not a NATO member, and I don't believe Pakistan is either. No. So if any of these were a NATO member, most certainly it would invoke Article 5, which would have the other nations to go and attack whoever it is that is not the NATO member. So yeah, this wouldn't be something like a world war. And the reason why the Ukraine and Russia situation could be a World War III is the fact that the U.S. is supplying Ukraine with weaponry, and this puts us in the position where if Russia comes to the point of nuclear warfare against Ukraine, it would also possibly with the United States as well, because during the last administration, they wanted to put Ukraine into NATO, or rather, Zelensky was fighting to get himself into NATO, his country, just so he can secure that spot, and Russia wouldn't be able to do anything about that. You say, I'm ashamed to call him prime minister. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Interesting. Diaper Don has the same detached look on his face as if he, okay, well, it says, just a theory. The world might have multiple natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanoes throwing lava and smoke that will put stress on situations across the globe and treaties for support. Well, it's possible. It's a theory. Details to be worked out in the coming weeks. What kind of deals is that, Julian? We have no idea. These sort of negotiations that are happening are very complex, as far as if you're referring to Ukraine and Russia, very complex issues that could lead to all-out war with Russia. And we don't want to do that, because the United States yet is not quite there to fight a type of war in Ukraine, or even Iran for that matter, because we're still going to blows with Iran in the sense that they're trying to negotiate, they're trying to come to deals, but they can't come to the deal. They can't come to the table because Iran has its fingers meddled all over the Middle East. There is nothing that is going to, it seems like nothing is going to stop Iran from stopping what they're trying to do with Israel. They want to ultimately get rid of Israel. And obviously Israel, it's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to get rid of Israel. Israel is always going to be there. God says in the Bible, it says that if the ordinances, the stars and the moon depart from before me, then Israel will cease from being a nation. This is Jeremiah speaking here. Prophecy in Jeremiah. And so, or not a prophecy, but the declaration that God makes concerning Israel. So the nation of Israel is not going anywhere. You can try to get rid of it. You can try to do all of that stuff, but it's not going to happen. And you say here the economy did not shrink in Q1 2025, but rather its growth was less than expected. This is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Thanks for putting that quote out there. He says, I love the poorly educated, your cult leader expressing his love for you. Not sure who you're referring to. If you're referring to me, I'm no cult leader. I'll say that much. So you say, so who would India nor Pakistan would ask for help? So Pakistan, India, it's an interesting question. Pakistan probably, maybe Iran. I'm not exactly sure. Not exactly sure there. That's an interesting question. It seems like nobody's coming to the help, but other allies possibly. I'm not sure if Turkey is an ally. You just have to look at the allies with regards to India and Pakistan on who their allies would be. Iran could possibly be meddled in either of those. This is who are the allies of Pakistan and India that could be drawn in. Nuclear weapons needed to be secured when were none in the East. What now? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the only one that is really trying to secure a nuclear warhead is Iran at the moment, but they're not able to. And so I think there are some talks that they greenlit. I think this was, oh boy, I'm not sure if I saved this here. We'll go back to the video here, but there's possibly some information with regards to the strike that might happen on nuclear sites in Iran. I think this is with regards to Israel striking. Not sure how familiar you are with geopolitics, mate. What exactly are you trying to get some information on with geopolitics? I mean, India and Pakistan is not my forte. I'll say that much. Let alone the fact that they had conflicts in the past. I did not know that until as of recent. But otherwise, we do know much more of I do know much more of the geopolitics in the region of Israel, Egypt, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, in Lebanon, Syria. The geopolitics, when you study these geopolitics, you understand what the Bible is talking about when it talks about these wars like Ezekiel 38 and all that stuff. What am I pretending, Colin? Maybe you should start your own podcast, or let us know in the comments, man. It says, bro just read my comment, read it slowly while pretending to know what I was explaining in my comments while he slowly pretended to answer another. Interesting. Let's see. I'm afraid China might try to help Pakistan because of the potential U.S. trade deal. It's possible. India, the most populous country's fastest growing medicine industry, and just landed on the moon less than 2 years ago. Okay, so what in regards to geopolitics are you talking about? The fact that I don't understand here. When we talk about the geopolitics in the region, the implications that could happen should this be all-out war. These are two nuclear countries here. They've been feuding for quite some time. They've had a feud for quite some time, in the sense that they've always gone back to this. No, China would not help Pakistan for that reason. We went into Iraq over the phantom of nuclear weapons. Now, major militaries in big spots, geopolitical, are duking it out. That question lives. The U.S. looking hypocritical from the other wars we waged. Interesting. Yeah, we're going to have to look more into that and see exactly what the implications are with that war, because it's
economy, and I want to thank
quite
you
interesting.
For your leadership on that, Donald, and for the way in which your team have negotiated this. And I'm so pleased that we've got this deal, we've finalised it, and we've built an incredible platform for the future. So thank you so much, Donald. I'm now going to go and do a press conference. I think you have your press in with you, but on the details, I think if you've got Howard, we can deal with that through one of my team.
That's great. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. It's an honor. We're going to have a continued, maybe a better relationship than ever before. You know, I don't know if the media knows, but the U.S. and U.K. have been working for years to try and make a deal. And it never quite got there.
Yeah.
It did with this Prime Minister. So I want to just congratulate you.
Well, with this president, this prime minister, we've managed to achieve what many people have tried to achieve for many years.
That's right.
And I'm really pleased, and it feels completely historic and on a special 80-year anniversary as well. So, Donald, thank you so much. It's really good to have got this deal over the line. Tribute to both teams, tribute to our countries, and tribute to your leadership.
Thank you. Well, it really is a great thing. And you go do your press conference, and I'll see you soon. Maybe speak to you later. But thank you very much. And an incredible thing. I can't tell you that for so many years, even as I sat, everybody talked and talked and talked about a deal with, it just seemed like a natural deal, but it was not done. But now it was done with us. So I feel very proud to have been a part of it. Keir, thank you very much.
Thanks, Donald, and we'll speak again soon.
Very good. So long. Bye.
Now, with regards to Iran and everything that is happening with that front here, let's get past this ad and take a look at what Trump has said with regards to Iran.
It calls a full and comprehensive trade deal with the United Kingdom. The first in what the White House hopes will be a series of agreements designed to level the field with America's trading partners around the world.
And markets jumping a bit higher on the news. You can see that there, just a little bit of a bump up, and we will take it on a day where we could even also have a Pope announcement today.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe this hour.
The headlines are just
I thought it was going to be a big hour.
Just
talking.
You have
$6 billion
the measure. You have the measure of Xi.
a day we were losing on trade. And we'll see how it goes. We have a big meeting on Saturday in Switzerland with some of the guys going over there, Scott and some other guys, very good guys.
So within this hour, we will probably hear from the president, scheduled for about 29 minutes from now, about the UK. What else did you take away from that conversation?
Well, I added in Jimmy Lai to the conversation about Chinese negotiations because the Chinese dissident is probably struggling to stay alive, and his son comes and makes the rounds in American media. And President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio have both emphasized Jimmy Lai's got to get out of prison before he dies. So they're going to add that on the table in Switzerland. That was important. But mostly the key takeaway that made the news is the president said again, Iran has two choices, and only two. Either we bomb you nicely or we bomb you gently, or we destroy the centrifuges nicely or we bomb you viciously. And I think he's made that very abundantly clear. Every program, everywhere he appears, you can have one from column A or you get column B. And I like that message. It was very clear yesterday.
Okay, let's move to Iran. You asked him about that as well. Key comments from the president, then I'll follow up at J.D. Vance. Watch here.
I'd much rather make a deal, a really verified deal. We want total verification. We can do that. But I would much prefer a strong verified deal where we actually blow them up, but blow them up or just denuke them. But
Denuke them. I mean, I think it's interesting because we got to look at the fact that Iran has a big role to play within Bible prophecy. When we look at the war in Ezekiel 38, we see that there's a group of nations. We have the leader Gog from the land of Magog who goes and gets a company of other armies. He takes them and their bands, and he goes and they invade Israel, and Israel is taken by surprise because these people are living in unwalled villages, according to Ezekiel 38, and the surprise that is coming, this sort of attack that happens, the nations like Sheba and Dedan will be, and the merchants of Tarshish will be advocating against this verbally. That's all we sort of see in this realm here of Bible prophecy. So the role that Iran has to play when we're looking at the fact that Iran is this state, this country that wants to get rid of Israel, that wants to, essentially wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. In their charter, we talked about their charter before. Their charter is to eliminate the Jewish people. Their charter is to eliminate the Americans. They talk about the Jewish people being little Satan, the Americas being the big Satan. And this is something that they're not going to lead the charge in this, but from the leader Gog from the land of Magog, it's stated that this happens from the uttermost parts of the region. And when we're talking about Israel is the center focal point of the Bible. It's the north, east, south, and west of what we see in Israel is when God's explaining the sort of nations that are around Israel, it's again, northeast, south, and west. So when we're talking about the northernmost parts of this region, we're talking about Russia. And so Gog from the land of Magog, even the language there implies that it is Moscow, Russia area. And so this leader, whoever it is, whether it be Putin or not, we see these sort of geopolitical information that is surrounding these nations where they will eventually invade Israel, possibly through Syria, down from Damascus down to Aleppo, out to to northern Israel. That could be the possible gateway that they take in order to invade into Israel, where they're dwelling without a land of unwalled villages, or they're dwelling in a land of unwalled villages. Now they're currently, I mean, their new plan is to take over Gaza. New plan. This was recently announced. And I think it's important to point this out. But this is
the Associated Press says the IDF is tapping tens of thousands of reserves in order to do so. Meanwhile, the Jewish state is promising a stern response to yesterday's missile attack from Yemen on the port near Tel Aviv. General Jack Keane is with us now, and we were just talking in the break how there's always something going on in the world, but in this part of the world, Israel continues to fight on multiple fronts. They still have hostages that they're trying to deal with. Capturing Gaza in the midst of all of this with the Houthis attacking their airport, how do you see it, sir?
JT, you say the second temple has been torn down. Have you heard about the Jewish wanting to restart the law of sacrifice, if that bears any truth? And the Mahdi cult leader rising with the downfall of Islam coming. Interesting that you mentioned that, JT. So interesting, because I'm watching this new guy who's claiming himself to be the Mahdi, which is essentially the Messiah of the Islamic religion. And he is rising. He is rising, most certainly. And it's so interesting, the things that he's calling for. He's calling for to get the Jewish people together so that they can sort of create this peace. And when we talk about the final things that we learn about in the Bible, the end of days, the Antichrist, and the things that he's planning to do, we're not saying that. I'm not saying that this guy's the Antichrist, by no means. We don't know who this man will be until the Holy Spirit is taken out of the way. He who restrains, it talks about in Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, I believe. And so this new guy it's just fascinating. But the Jews do want to reinstitute sacrifice. They want to not only reinstitute sacrifice, but they also want to rebuild the third temple, because they can't do sacrifices without the rebuilding of the third temple. So all of this is very, very important to understand the Bible prophecy and everything that is happening, or everything that will happen surrounding the region. The Antichrist will strengthen a current peace treaty. And when he does that, there's going to be peace for a period of time. But in the middle of that time, this is what's known as the Great Tribulation, 3 years of peace, and then 3 years of complete destruction. Right in the middle, we see this sort of change of this Antichrist, or of this person who comes into power at that moment. So the third temple that we're talking about with the Jewish people, how they want to reinstitute this third temple, rebuild this third temple, not a good thing, because that means that shortly after that, there will be a destruction. There will be great tribulation, as such the world has never seen ever. Very important stuff there when we consider all of that. We don't want to discount any of it. And so, very interesting. I wanted to go over a video that talks about this new guy here, this new Mahdi. And so, anyway.
Yeah, well, what's really taking place here certainly is General Zamir came in on March the 5th.
You say, didn't they already announce the building of the third temple to start, and they're just waiting to sacrifice 1 to 3 red heifers? No, they did not announce any sort of building of the third temple. This would be breaking news all over the place. Absolutely not. Not yet. They are still trying to make sure that these red heifers are in fact clean according to the Levitical laws that they need to do to institute this sacrifice. And yeah, that can't happen. The rebuilding of the temple can't happen until they figure out the situation with the Golden Dome. This is under Jordanian control. And so little by little, they're allowing prayer to happen on the Temple Mount by Jews. And the IDF is the one that usually steps in to stop the Jews from praying on the Temple Mount. But they allow it on the Western Wall. Of course, this is known as the Wailing Wall. So anyway, so yeah, interesting that you point that out. Yes, they haven't announced that they're going to, I mean, maybe that there's plans. There's so many, there's like the Temple Institute that releases information. Apparently there's all these things that they already have ready, like the menorah, which cost a huge amount of money. It's a lot of gold that they actually use to make the menorah, and all of the other various things that they have ready in order for the priests to put on, like the garments and the stones and all that such, the breastplate. And so you say, equally, there is no proof of any God or heaven. Now, that is not true. We can look all around us. We see that there is some type of creation or creator that created the creation, which is the things that we experience every day: nature, wind, the universe, the sun, the moon, stars. All that stuff indicates of a creator. We can say that all this happened by chance and by, I don't know what, the ability of the fact that, or the fact that we came from nothing. The chances of that are actually really impossible. It's more impossible to have faith in the sort of thing that we come from nothing, and to believe that we came from a creator, that someone actually was outside of space, time, and matter that created the earth, the trees, and everything, the ocean, the animals, plants, humans. I'm keeping current with the Jewish news. Hey, well, if you mind posting sort of the article here, maybe we can take a look at it. Colin, you're wrong, because the Bible is not a nonfiction book. Bible is actually, in fact, historical accounts of what happened in the past. Gosh, it's so easy to just refute that point. You say it's still too early to tell, but markets are rallying now. Yeah. You say, let's see. It's been talked about for years, but not a real implementable and immediate way. Yeah, not yet. Not yet. The geopolitics in the region is very, things are very hostile still with regards to the Temple Mount.
And he presented a new plan to the prime minister. Credit the previous chief of the Israeli Defense Forces for killing, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2/3, 75% of the Hamas fighters. But there's still several thousand left. And they did that in the past by conducting raids and then moving on to another area where there are Hamas fighters. General Zamir's plan is to take territory and then kill the Hamas or capture them in that territory and depose them from any future ability to have political control of Gaza. That's the end state. They recognize full well if they're not able to do that, it'd be impossible for them to leave Gaza and turn it over to some international force that would be willing to provide security for a new Palestinian-like government. All of that obviously is still circumspect and no decisions have been made. But from a military perspective, what is happening here is to finish off Hamas once and for all, so they cannot have any political ability to control Gaza in the future.
What did you make of that attack on the airport? And I just want to show for everybody here, Israel has an Iron Dome, and we can put it up here on the screen for everybody.
See, the Bible has the most archaeological classed eyewitness accounts than I think any king or important historical figure, even after the fact that Jesus had lived on the earth. There is extra biblical historical accounts from people from Rome, from people like Josephus, Origen, so many other people that we talk about, that we look at with regards to biblical accounts, extra biblical accounts. How is all of this fake? That's wild to think. So wild. You're just discounting the fact that all this is just fiction or nonfiction. All of this is just fakery. When we have the actual documents, we just create those. We just create all of these documents just to create a religion. That doesn't make any sense. A religion that actually tells us that we'll be persecuted and hated and killed for if we follow this religion, if we follow this person, right? Really, this is not a religion. This is really following a person who is God. So for us to be killed and this none of this stuff gets covered on the news, especially the mainstream media does not cover the news when there's Christians that are murdered, beheaded. In, what was it, Syria, there was Christians that were murdered. They were beheaded. There's persecution that happens currently in UK with regards to the fact that there is no allowing of any type of evangelism. You'll be arrested. You can't pray. They even said you can't pray in your head. It's just wild. There's persecution just for being Christ follower. But every other religion is fine. Every other religion, yeah, go ahead.
See how it works. And
you can even sacrifice babies, and it's fine. Wild.
So you know this very well, which is this is a way to intercept these missiles that are coming through. But
yes, historical events like Moses parting the sea. Yes, all of that is documented. Historical events written down. Things passed down from generation to generation. Even if there was never a religion, man still would have created one. What does that tell you, though? That tells you that humanity has an innate desire to worship something. Anything. Could be a mop. There's people that worship singers, musical artists, right? People that worship or idolize these actors and these people in such high positions. People have this desire to worship something, whether it's the worship of money, whether it's the worship of material things. They have this desire to worship. Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that we have a desire to worship something. Universe, could be anything. Right? You can say that points to, that wouldn't be from the case of just being randomly created. If we're just a bunch of clump of cells and we just happen to be here. Interesting. Interesting.
One got through and hit the airport.
Yeah, they have three systems. The Iron Dome defense is rockets against rockets and missiles, and then the mid-course is David Sling, and that's kind of mid-course missiles, some cruise missiles, and then the most advanced ballistic missiles are defeated by Arrow, and also our THAAD missile system, which the United States has given Israel. Those two systems fail. The Arrow defense system and the THAAD missile system, and this missile was able to penetrate the airport, and then also a similar missile penetrated Tel Aviv in December. So obviously the Israelis are doing an autopsy on this. What happened? Why did they have failure? But remember, we take it for granted that if a missile is flying, we can knock it.
Yeah, but nobody goes to wars just based on religion. Religion only accounts for 7% of the wars. So that's not even true. And the fact, if that's the argument that you're trying to make with regards to religion being the cause of wars, that's not true. Palestinian Gaza belongs to Israel now. Yeah, people also worship Trump, but we all know how that's going right now. You might have a desire to worship. I don't. Oh, well, you think you don't, though. There's something that you worship. Even though if you won't call it worship, you will still idolize something. There's got to be something in your life, yourself. That could be a form of worship, right? You might just say, oh, I'm just conceited. I don't know. There you go. You worship a woman in bed, and that's about it. There you go. You might think it's a joke, but that's true. It's just how people are. It says, Juan, why do you think they've been fighting in the Middle East for thousands of years? It's not necessarily over religion, though. It's because of the land. They have this fighting that has been going on since what we've seen in the Bible, that there's going to be constant animosity between nations, but it never says because of religion, never says because of God, never says they're going to war against this land because of me. No, God doesn't say that. People have always hated the Jews. Wild. And yet they're literally the size of New Jersey. Israel is the size of New Jersey. If the Exodus, if people continue to populate from the Exodus, there would be well over billions of Israelis living on this earth. But instead, no, we don't have that because of things like the Holocaust and things like other things of the fact that Jews have been displaced out of their own country. They've migrated to other parts of the region because of the exiles that have happened to the Jewish people in Babylon. They've been exiled into Babylon. They've been kicked out of their land. And this all goes back to the fact that they were following into idolatry, idol worship. God said, look, if you live in the land that I've given you and you do the things that I have commanded you to do, blessed you be in the city, blessed you be in the country, blessed you be your crops, blessed you be your livestock. However, yet if you turn away from me, cursed be you in the city, cursed be you in the country, cursed be, it goes on the whole list. God lays out a very specific plan for the Jewish people, and these Jewish people are to follow this so that they can be the light to the nations. Yet if they don't follow this, then we see what happens when people turn away from God. We saw what happened the last 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency. It was a judgment on America. I think we're seeing a sort of grace that is happening with this Trump administration. At least for now, we're seeing this sort of grace that is happening. This sort of temporary, I don't know, moment of, I just call it mercy, honestly, because we fully deserve judgment at this point. Because everything that America has fallen into, this nation.
Down, because we've seen that technology time and time again. But there's always misses. And we don't really account for the misses very much unless there's casualties as a result of it.
Right, because it's also been so successful.
Here, but nobody killed.
It has been so successful.
Yeah,
there is a
absolutely.
rendering of a possible Golden Dome system here in the United States that we can show for everybody. This would be...
Again, the Bible is a collection of documents that were written that literally talking about the history of Israel, the future of Israel, and the coming king. So it's not even about religion. You have this idea, this mindset about religion that is completely diluted in all the nonsense that you've read or heard. So you say, Matt Hodge, I don't believe in any particular religion. I have to ask you, what is the true religion? Religion, I believe, was a Nelsa. What is a true religion? Well, why I say I don't even like to use the term religion or religious, because the type of, I'll say, quote unquote, religion that I follow is really a relationship with my God. That is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the God who created the heavens and the earth. It says right in the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form. We can go on and on. This is the creation. The religion that you're talking about. You say, what is the true religion? Many arguments to go based on that question alone. We can see religions like Islam or Buddhism or Sikhism or Hinduism, all the isms. Catholicism. In order to understand the true, in your terms, the true religion, we can understand that the God of the Bible is, quote unquote, the true religion, because he talks about the fact that he's able to talk about things that are future. Just one example, right? Talk about things that are future, and those things that he talks about in times past, they come to pass. So things that he mentions hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, he says will happen in this time and period. And when those things come to pass, that is the fact that he is true. Nobody has done that with 100% accuracy. We can only speculate. We can only take guesses as to what might happen in the future. People bet on these things, like with the Trump administration. They bet on the future economy of the Trump administration. They make money or they lose money, but they will never know for certain the future. Now, this God of the Bible talks about that, the fact that there's little gods, right? These little gods are idols that the Israelites were worshiping. Yet these idols, they don't walk, they don't talk, they don't see, they don't hear. They have all these features. They have eyes, they have legs, they have ears, yet they can't do anything with any of that. They were carved by the creator, which is the man or the woman who creates these idol images. Yet God, as he's explained in many different ways as to why he really is who he says he is his track record. So, just one small example. You say Israel has existed since Jacob, when the Hittites were a large empire, I believe, alongside Egypt, or maybe who was left in Babylon or Assyria east. So the Bible, after mentioning religions that have Bibles. Other religions don't have Bibles, no. None of the messianic prophecies came true. That's not true. They all came true. what are the ones specifically? Give me the scripture. Give me the verses. Give me the references. Jesus was real. He must have been a special fella. Look, Jesus is the only person that we have been talking about for over 2 millennia. He's still the most popular historical figure ever. Interesting. I'll see if I can find a quote for you because I think this is very, very important. Yeah, this is going to be incredibly important to read to you as far as let me see if I can find this quote. Let's see here. What do you guys think about this conversation happening here? Israel, Iran, all of that stuff.
Kind of a similar concept, if you can pull that up and everybody can see. This would be the idea of, some sort of protection. Do you like this idea?
Well, first of all, it's desirable to have a new concept to deal with where technology is going. We can deal with point defense, is what essentially Israel is dealing with there. In other words, defend Washington, D.C., which we're currently doing, defending the West Coast against the North Korean missile attack, ballistic missile attack, which we're currently doing. We can do more of that on the ground than the United States. Not cheap, obviously. But the real threat is coming from hypersonic glide missiles. In the summer of 21, China launched what's called, apologize for the term, fractional orbital bombardment system, a hypersonic missile that was launched.
So this quote here, this is very interesting. This comes from 100 years ago, a man by the name of James Allen Francis. He preached it. It's called One Solitary Life, and it's about Jesus. Here it is. It says, the child of a peasant, he grew up in another village where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. Then for 3 years, he was an inerrant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never held office. He never had family or owned a home. He didn't go to college. He never lived in a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things that normally or usually accompany greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33 when the tide of public opinion turned against him. His friends ran away. One of them denied him. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between 2 thieves. While he was dying, his executioners gambled for his garments, the only property he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 2 centuries have come and gone, and today he is the central figure of the human race. I am well within the mark when I say that all the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, all the kings that have ever reigned put together have not affected the life of man on this earth as much as one solitary life. That's James Allen Francis from about 100 years ago. He's obviously pointing out the fact that despite these humble origins, Jesus of Nazareth is undoubtedly the most influential human being in history. Quite fascinating when we take a look at all of that. But yet you guys don't believe any of it. You say Christianity or God is unjust. So really, what do you guys believe, right? You say, imagine if Mary was your wife. Would you believe in her or would you believe her? I knew that's just a random question, but would I believe her with what? Jesus was a representative of a movement. He was one of thousands who were crucified but served as a sort of mascot, and his story traveled around the world slowly at first. No, it spread like a wildfire, actually, when he ascended. Sounds like you don't know the Bible. You've never read it. Doesn't sound like you've read it. The proof is in the history and the time of writings of archaeological classed eyewitnesses. Luke, in his gospel account, writes the orderly account to a man named Theophilus. Quite interesting that he is actually a very well documented historian. The way he documents these things, he documents them by the reign of kings in the 3rd year of so on and so forth. Say, Jay, so you want us to prove that your imaginary God exists? That's your job. What is going on here? I have no idea the conversation between you and Jay. And we go, well, I know you guys are talking about God or Jesus existing. You say Jesus existed. Nobody's arguing that. But these miracles you guys claim is majority naive. Now, here's the truth of the fact that of Jesus and the resurrection and all of this stuff here. The greatest miracle in the Bible, you talk about the miracles, the greatest miracle in the Bible wasn't the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. It was the fact that if the beginning is true, the beginning of the Bible says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. If that's true, then the rest of the Bible is true. Things like supernatural healings, things like the resurrection is true. If God created the heavens and the earth, that is the miracle there. Everything else would be true. Everything else would be true. There's doctors that have always, the only thing they can come up with a conclusion as to why people are miraculously healed is the fact that they say it's a miracle. In most cases, they use that type of language. Why? I mean, there has to be some type of something that goes on in their minds and their hearts when they see something that is incurable yet becomes cured, like cancer or defects in limbs or whatever the case may be. Heart issues, brain issues, a lot of these things are just cured miraculously. And this is what they call that phenomenon. The phenomena is miracles. So back to your question, nobody's arguing that, but these miracles you guys claim are majorly naive. Why is it majorly naive though? Why? Just because you think it just can't happen, even though miracles still happen this day? There's only one way to the Father, and that is through Yeshua. Yes, amen. Majorly, not majority. Yeah, thanks for correcting me, man. It's freaking 1:00 right now. I'm slurring my words because I'm so tired. But I'm glad I have you guys. This is great. Even if we're debating all these things and whatever. You say God and heaven are concepts meant to symbolize concepts that are very real. But there is actual no God, no actual heaven. Where's your proof? But there's no proof of a God that he created everything. There is a designer. Somebody designed this building that I'm in. Somebody designed this house. Somebody designed your place that you're living in. Somebody designed your car. There's a designer behind it. And then there's the builder. So, did all this just happen by happenstance? Did we just come from nothing? What's your point of view on that, Michelle? What's your point of view on how we came to be in existence? Did we just come from a big bang? I mean, the mathematical. What can we even say with that? Let's take a look at the sort of mathematics behind actually happening. because that would actually be interesting. Let's see what that looks like. So this is not really what I'm asking for. It's just the mathematical equation. That's not the type of math I'm talking about. I'm talking about the what is the word? The Anyway, we'll get back to that. The odds. What are the odds? Well, why did I never think to pray the cancer away? Why did you never think to pray the cancer away? Faith is an evidence. Actually, bro, every apostle died for believing in him being God, my friend, as well as Jesus could put live into mud, saliva, is that what you're trying to say? Bring dead back to live, as well as over 400 written down documents about him being resurrected. Well, golly, doctor said it was a miracle. I guess that means it's true. That's not what I'm saying. That's funny. I'm saying miracles happen, not there's no specific. I mean, actually, the fact that you're alive is a miracle. The fact that you have breath in your lungs is a miracle. That's not a miracle to you? That's wild. Because prayer doesn't work? Well, try it. Go into your room, or if you're in your room, pray and say, God, reveal yourself to me. He will reveal himself to you. But you're too scared to do it because you just love living your lifestyle. It's just the truth. You say, in all my years of study, especially biology, standards for many things have changed several times. Exactly. Nothing wrong with not knowing something. Agnostic people aren't atheists. As a mathematician, you are spouting mathematical nonsense. I didn't say anything mathematical for that. In that case, I didn't. I was just looking at the odds as the universe being created from nothing. Let's see if we can find that answer, if that's defining nothing. In a physical sense, is not the absence of everything, but the state of devoid of matter, radiation, and space-time itself. Philosophically, nothing might imply no physical laws, quantum fields, or potentially, potentiality, but science typically operates within the framework. There is some minimal structure, quantum vacuums, laws of physics, Big Bang theory supported by Friedman. So, I mean, to have faith in nothing, you have faith in something, it's nothing. So if we come to the conclusion about the odds, I mean, start getting to philosophy and all that stuff. It says the odds of the universe from nothing, specifically incalculable quantum models, suggest tiny probabilities. -10 to the 120th power. But assume pre-existing laws, quantum cosmology. Jeez. That's just wild. Anyway, science doesn't say that. What does science say, Justin? Wait, so what if I want to give cancer to someone? Could I technically pray for it to happen? No. That is just cruel. Why would you want anybody to pray for somebody to have cancer? That's just wild. Was God during the pandemic? Where was God during the pandemic? If there is a God, then he's either not powerful at all or not all good. You choose. Oh, this question. What do you mean? Where was God during the pandemic? You ever think that during the pandemic was a judgment or a sort of a trial? From my perspective, when I look at the pandemic, we see what happened to a lot of pastors. A lot of them fell away. A lot of them started to give into the fact that Gavin Newsom said, you cannot have church. You can't worship, you can't sing, yet all these nightclubs and all these strip clubs can stay open. That's totally fine. But they told the pastors, no, you cannot open. You have to stay closed. And so what God did was he weeded out all the nonsense, the fake pastors during this time. And we see all the ones that thrived as they stayed open during the pandemic. And so for me, in my point of view on that perspective, God was taking away all the fake, really showing even humanity in general. Like this whole thing of the pandemic, do you ever also think that, of course, if there's evil, we know there's good, right? If we just have that sort of general understanding, if there's something that is evil, if we see evil that happens in the world, because I know all of you, depending on what kind of point of view you have, there's evil. And if there's evil, there must be good. And so we have somebody like Satan who also is able to control and manipulate certain things. A lot of power that he has, but most certainly not powerful than God. He's not equal with God. He's not opposite of God. He's a created being as well. All these things are a part of an unnatural, or rather the changing from something that is actually really natural from the beginning, which is from creation, to something that is unnatural. I'm distracted by your comments here, but so this whole pandemic issue of God being all powerful and all good, all that whole argument there. This is something that when we look at the things that happen, either this is something that is done by God as judgment, or something that humanity has put upon themselves. When we see what happened during the pandemic, what happened? We saw people messing around in labs. What are you going to get? Right? We saw people funding the labs. What are you going to get? You're going to get diseases. You're going to get things that shouldn't happen. These unelected bureaucrats that got put into power, like Anthony Fauci. These things shouldn't have happened. Yet they did. And where did it get us? So we see an example of humanity putting this upon themselves, and then we attribute it to God. We blame God. Wild. This whole conflict with Iran, this whole conflict with India, Pakistan, what is going to happen with these two nations here? Israel taking over Gaza. What is going to happen there? We see Trump that he announced that Gaza would be there would be a new Gaza, rebuild Gaza, make Gaza great again. What's going to happen with the United States? What's going to happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Will we own homes? Will be more money in our pocket? No tax on overtime, no tax on tips. The big, beautiful bill. What's going to happen within the next year? This new American Pope, does that mean anything for America? We'll find out. Keep it locked here on the Equally Yoked Show. This is your host. I'm your host, Charles. This is your host. I'm your host, Charles. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this content, go ahead and share it. Subscribe. If you don't, all good. Come back next time. We'll debate about more stuff. I love debating. I don't know it all. I don't claim to know it all. Some of you guys taught me some things that I need to look into, most certainly. But I do know one thing is for sure, and one thing is true, that God is, the God of the Bible is true. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel. he is true. Jesus Christ is true. Jesus Christ came. He lived on this earth. He was a real person. He died for you. So guys, thank you for all of this interaction. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Keep it locked here.